All right, how's everybody doing? This session, we're going to probably get into some recapping. We're going to get into some real basic stuff. We're going to get everybody caught up so we can actually get into some step 3, some instincts, and some things that you really got to know to put this program really into action. So this session, we're going to go about an hour and 15 minutes, maybe 4 hours. Just joking. We're going to go for about an hour and 15 minutes. We're going to give you some real basic information. Now, a lot of you who have seen this before, you've tuned into some sessions before, what you know is that we try to get some real basic information across to you. And to get basic information from one mind to another mind, to relay that information, you got to be able to put out the information, put out the facts in a way where somebody can pick up this information and these facts and put it into their mind. Now, you know, one of the things that I really stress a lot is the difference between listening and hearing. You know, there's not a doubt in my mind that most alcoholics hear just about everything and listen to about almost none of it. And one of the things about hearing and listening is this: if I hear something, it goes in this ear and it goes right on out this ear. But if I actually listen to the shit, it'll go in this ear, it'll get trapped up here, and it doesn't leave. So in order to get this information from one mind to another, not only do you have to hear it, you have to listen to it. Now, we sort of go over some of the same information in each session over and over and over and over. You know, when you were in school, in kindergarten, first grade, the teacher told you about 52 times, bring a pencil, 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 and eventually your ass brought a pencil. So we keep going over some of the basic information over and over and over and over and over. Now, today in this session, we're going to happen to just do some recapping on some basic stuff. But when we get into some other sessions, I'll give you an example. Let's say in a session, we just happen to be talking on step 5. What we're going to do is, before we get into step 5, we're going to go back and recap on 1 through 4. Let's say we happen to, in a session, we happen to be on step 10. We're going to recap from 1 through 9, the first 15 or so minutes, and then get into 10. That way, if somebody new comes in, we're not leaving them behind. Somebody can come in new, they can gather some basic information, and we can get them right on in there with us. So some of you ones that have been with us for a little while, I want you to remember how it was when you first came in and you were learning some of the basics. Now, I'm a firm believer that if somebody hears the same information over and over and over and over and over, and they get the same thing out of it, they're in trouble. See, in this program, I'm supposed to be changing and growing on a daily basis. So if I'm changing and growing, every time I hear the same information, I'm going to get something different out of it. So if we keep going over the same information and it's boring you, it may not be us, it may be you. So what you want to try to do when you hear the same information is pick up some things that are different, okay? Now, I want you to turn your big book to the preface. In the preface, okay, it's in the very front of the book. And the preface, I want you to go down to the first paragraph in the preface. And it says, because this book, they're talking about the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, has become the basic text for our society, and has helped such large number of alcoholic men and women to recovery, there exists strong sentiment against any radical changes being made in it. Now, they refer to this as a textbook, and textbooks are meant to be studied, okay? And a novel like Gone with the Wind, something like that, it's meant to be read. A textbook is meant to be studied. Now, in this textbook, you sort of have to understand how it's broken down. If you go to the table of contents, okay? If you go to the table of contents, this is how it works. From the preface to forward to the 4th edition. If you were to highlight that, this is the history. This is the history of Alcoholics Anonymous, okay? Now, if you go from the doctor's opinion to Bill's story, if you take these 2 chapters, you X them out and put step 1 there. These are the 2 steps that really get in and explain step 1, okay? And as you're going to find out in a minute, we refer to step 1 as the problem. So these 2 chapters, doctor's opinion, Bill's story, get into step 1 and they tell you about the doctor's opinion. Now, we agnostics, more about alcoholism, and there is a solution. I'm going to repeat those again. There is a solution, more about alcoholism, and we agnostics. 3 chapters are step 2. In these 3 chapters, there is a solution, more on alcoholism, we agnostics, all cover step 2, the solution. If you go to how it works, okay, how it works are steps 3 and 4. So how it works tells you steps 3 and 4. Into action are steps 5 through 11. So into action are steps 5 through 11. And then the last chapter, working with others, is step 12. So that's how the book is broken down. And it's sort of important that you know that. So the preface through the forwards of the history, doctor's opinion, Bill's story, step 1. There is a solution, more on alcoholism, we agnostics, all that is step 2. How it works is 3 and 4. And into action is steps 5 through 11. And then the last chapter is devoted entirely to working with others. That's step 12. Okay? Now, there's a couple of things that you have to know, okay, about solving problems. Basic problem solving. There's 3 pieces to the puzzle. And you're going to hear this over and over and over and over and over. And those 3 pieces to the puzzle are, you got to understand the problem, you got to know the solution to the problem, and then you got to have a plan, program of action that you can take that'll get you out of the problem and to the solution. Now, those 3 things, problem, solution, plan of action. That's basic problem solving. If you went out to your vehicle and you went to start it and you had a bad battery, you would have a problem. Now, if you went and changed the windshield wipers, would that solve your problem? No. But if you step back, you diagnose the problem. I got a bad battery. As soon as you diagnose the problem, a solution and a plan of action falls right in your lap. So I diagnosed the problem. I got a bad battery. The solution and the plan of action to that is real evident. The solution is get a new battery. The plan of action is get up off my ass, go to the auto parts store, get the battery, and put some bitch in. Now, all of it hinges on me understanding the problem. And I can't emphasize that enough, okay? The foundation, the taproot of our whole society called Alcoholics Anonymous, the taproot of this whole thing is us understanding the problem. Now, the problem is twofold, and step one is actually a problem statement. Part of the problem is physical, and part of the problem is mental. Now, we're going to talk about the physical aspect of this thing first, okay? In the big book, in the doctor's opinion, Dr. William D. Silkworth explains to us that we have this thing called an allergy. And he tells us the allergy, it manifests itself through the phenomenon of craving, okay? What that means is this, in real simple terms where alcoholics like me can understand some mumbo jumbo, is this. Every time I pick up the first one, whether I drink it, smoke it, shoot it in my arm, eat it, every time I put the first one in, something happens in my body that doesn't happen in the average, normal, temperate user. When I put one in me, this allergy sets off a physical craving. The body takes over, and the body starts to tell my mind what to do, which is go on a well-known spree. Now, one of the ways we can give you an example of the body taking over. If I told y'all right now, I've got 5 X-Lax tablets in my hand. I'm going to eat them, and in an hour, I'm not going to shit. How many of y'all would go, well, he's full of shit? And I would tell you, not for long. Now, if I took 5 X-Lax tablets and I dumped them into my system, those chemicals would start to work on my body would take over, and my body would tell my mind what to do, which is go shit. And my mind could not overrule my body and not shit. It'd be impossible. Now, if you're alcoholic like me, and you have this physical allergy to alcohol, anytime I put any form of alcohol into my body, I put the first one in, the allergy is kicked off, it sets off a physical craving, my body takes over, and my body tells my mind what to do, which is go get more. And I don't stop until I run out, pass out, get locked up, or somebody stops me. Now, how many of y'all have come up off of one of these sprees right here, one of these bad sprees? You got in legal trouble, family trouble, financial trouble, work trouble, and you sang the Alcoholics National Anthem. And the Alcoholics National Anthem is, I will never do that shit again. And you told yourself that, and up here you really meant, I will never do that shit again. So what you try to do is something humanly impossible for an alcoholic, and that's not put the first one in without another solution. Now, how many of you have come up off a spree and you try to stay sober and live in your own skin? And you go a day, a 2, a week, a month, and you start a little emotional build up sober. You get irritable, you get restless, you get discontented. And finally, the mind, where this obsession centers, it tells you, hey, you feeling pretty bad, which you probably are. I know how you can get some relief. Let's put the first one back in. And buddy, when an alcoholic puts the first one back in, they get some relief. They get a sense of ease and comfort. Now, if they could stop right there with one, it would probably be nothing wrong with it. But here lies the problem. I got this allergy of the body that every time I put the first one in, the allergy sets off a physical craving. My body takes over, and my body tells my mind, I need more. And I end up back on the spree. I'm worse than ever. I come up for air. I'm demoralized. I'm regretful. I have a lot of fear. And I go, how in the hell did I ever get started again? Now, all of this would be academic. All of it would be pointless if I never put the first one in. See, it's not the 20th or the 30th one that gets me. It's the first one. And the reason I keep putting the first one in is because of this thing called an obsession of the mind. And this obsession, when it kicks in, it overrules everything. It overrules my family, my freedom, my job, my kids, my car, my dog, my cat, my hamster. It overrules everything. And it tells me to put the first one in. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can sort of figure out if you have the allergy and the obsession. Now, I would tell you a good way is if you're sitting in a treatment center listening to me right now, it's a good chance you got both of these. See? Now, the indicator that tells a person if they have the allergy is the craving. See, normal people, when they put the first one in them, they don't have the allergy. So their body doesn't physically crave a second one or a third one. That's why a normal person can do one, maybe two, put the shit down, and go about their business. Now, the craving. The first drink equals 1 unit of craving. And that 1 unit of craving, my body starts to physically crave the second one. So when I put the second one in, the craving actually doubles. And when the second one's put in, my body physically craves the third one. So when I dump the third one in, the craving triples, and so forth and so on. So actually, I'm craving more after the 20th one than I am the first one. But what sets it all in motion is the first one. If I never put the first one in, I can never crave the second one. Now, the physical allergy, it never, ever, never, ever goes away. It actually gets worse, whether I'm using or sober. I tell people this all the time. I've been sober 19 years and some months, okay? I've been sober 19 years and some months. And if I picked up today, God forbid, I wouldn't pick up where I left off 19 years and some months ago. I would pick up like I had been using the whole time. Because the whole time I've been sober, the physical allergy has actually been getting worse. Now, if I take care of the mental part, the crux of the problem, if I take care of this, let's say I don't have this anymore. Guess what I'll never put in me? The first one. And if I never put the first one in me, this allergy actually becomes a moot point. Now, for 26 years, give or take some change, I drank and drugged. And I never could not put the first one in me. And it's because I had the obsession this whole time. Now, I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, I take some 12 simple spiritual steps. Some things start to change personality-wise up here in my mind. I continue to take the steps. And what I haven't had in 19 years and some months is the first one. And the reason I haven't, because in that 19 years and some months, the obsession's been gone. See, the obsession's the crux of the problem. Now, an obsession's a thought or an idea that overrules everything. If you think of one thing that's nearest and dearest to you, whether it be your child, your mother, your wife, your job, your car, your dog, your cat, one thing that's nearest and dearest to you, maybe your freedom. I want you to think of that one thing that's nearest and dearest to you. When the obsession kicks in, and it overrules the one thing that's nearest and dearest to you, it actually makes it like that thing that's nearest and dearest to you doesn't even exist anymore. And it tells you to put the first one in. Now, how many of y'all have ever been in front of a judge? Would you say judges are some powerful human beings? I would. Now, if judges could remove the obsession from alcoholics, our prisons would almost be empty right now. See, but judges can't do that. No human can remove the obsession. Now, I want you to think about this. How many of y'all, every time you come up off a bad spree and get into all kinds of trouble, and you end up with more problems than a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest, and you sing the Alcoholics National Anthem, how many of y'all are starting to realize what you're trying to do is something humanly impossible? You're trying to remove the obsession on your own, and you can't do it. If you could, the very first time you ever got into trouble, faced a consequence, you would have put the shit down and never picked it up again. So, to sort of summarize step one, the problem. I have a mental obsession coupled with a physical allergy that renders me powerless. So, if I can't stay stopped because of the obsession, and once I start, I can't control how much I'm going to use because of the allergy, these two things render me powerless. Now, how many of y'all come into treatment? You sort of new at this, and you think you can't quit. See, actually, you can quit. You have quit thousands of times. I promise you, every time you come up off a bad spree, your ass quits. And you do that all by yourself. But you don't really have a quitting problem. What you have, because of the obsession, is a starting problem. See, if you didn't start, you'd never have to quit. Look, I tell people this all the time. I haven't quit for the last 19 years in a couple of months. I just hadn't found it necessary to start. Now, the physical allergy. We can't do anything about that. Once you got it, you got it. That's why they say once alcoholic, always alcoholic. So where we're going to do all our work, where we're going to really try to make some changes, is not with the allergy, but with the obsession. Now, how many of y'all have tried buku solutions to a problem you really haven't understood? You know, I hear people say this to alcoholics like me all the time. When I was coming in new at this, I'm a week sober, I'm 2 weeks sober, sitting in a treatment center, and I keep hearing stuff, you know, and I keep going, and that's just not really making sense anymore. See, how many of y'all have tried to change the people you hang around with? How many of y'all tried to change jobs, relationships? You know, some of you get to a point where you try to change your damn clothes. You try to change everything except self. Now, every time that I would change friends, every time I would change environments, every time I would change jobs, the problem with that is I would bring something with me, and it was called the obsession. And around new friends, new jobs, new environments, the obsession would kick in and overrule everything, and I'd be off to the races again. Now, in early recovery, is it important to change some people, some places, and some things? It is. But I'm telling you, after the initial couple of first 1 or 2 or 3 months, you won't be able to do that every time. So what's going to have to change is not people, places, and things, but you. And I'm telling you, we got about 3 million recovered alcoholics who can go anywhere and do anything normal people can do, except put the first one in them. Those 3 million people, recovered alcoholics who have changed, the last thing they would want is to put the first one in. So to summarize step one, I can't stay stopped because of the obsession. And once I start, I can't control how much I'm going to use. So these two things render a person powerless. I want y'all to turn y'all's big books to page, if you have a 4th edition, it's XXV and 3 eyes. And I want everybody to turn their big book there, and I want everybody to follow along. XXV with 3 eyes. The way you're going to know you there, the first paragraph is going to start out with "we believe" and "so suggested." XXV and 3 eyes. I joke and tell people this all the time. If I told you it was XXIV, you'd already be there. All right. Out the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. We believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy. The phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. Now, normal people, those average, normal, temperate users, they don't crave another one once they put the first one in them because they don't have the allergy. Now, ask yourself, when you put your favorite thing in you, the first one, do you set off the allergy? Does it produce a physical craving, and do you want more? Now, one of the ways I sort of ask you is this. If you could come up to a table, and this table had every drug known to mankind, and alcohol is a drug. Alcohol is the oldest known drug on the face of this earth. If you walked up to this table, and you could pick your favorite one, and you could grab as much as you could hold, could you do one today, put the rest of it in the refrigerator, come back next month, do one more, put the rest of it in the refrigerator, come back the 3rd month, do one more, leave the rest of it in the refrigerator, and do that every month until all that shit was gone? If you can do something like that, you in the wrong room and you listening to the wrong video. Now, if you're honest with yourself, anytime you do one of your favorite things, what you want physically is another one, and another one, and another one. And the more that I use, the more my body craves. And the more my body craves, the more I have to use. All right, back in the book. It says these allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. I can't use it liquid form, powder form, rock form, any form. Because every time I put one in, I'm going to want more. Now, alcohol in any form. How many of y'all in here say, well, I don't drink. I couldn't possibly be alcoholic. Well, hell, I don't drink anymore either, and I'm alcoholic. How many of us, we try to classify ourselves like this? We think an alcoholic is somebody with a trench coat on, they got a brown paper bag with a 5th of Thunderbird in it, and they stumbling in the gutter. Now, is that probably alcoholic? Probably. But hell, I'm alcoholic. I ain't had a drink in over 19 years. I don't stumble in the gutters. I don't have anybody looking for me anymore. You can't base it like that. How many of you like to say, well, he's had 3 DWIs. I haven't never had a DWI. I couldn't possibly be alcoholic. How many of you say, well, she's been divorced 5 times. I've only been divorced twice. I couldn't possibly be alcoholic. That's not the way we do it. This is how you determine if you're alcoholic or not. Is when you put the first one in of your favorite thing, do you set this allergy off? And if you do, it produces a craving of the body, and you end up on one of these well-known sprees just about every time. Back in the book. It says, once having formed the habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, namely themselves, their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. Now, how many of you in here, you keep adding problems on top of problems on top of problems on top of problems, and you look up one day and you go, shit, I got more problems than a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. And after about the next 2 or 3 problems you pile up on it, how many of y'all go, F it, what's the use anyway? See, every one of us alcoholics with this problem has faced that right there. And we sort of get to a point where we go, you know, I'm just going to go to the bitter end, and I'm going to blot out the consciousness of my intolerable situation the best I can. Now, that sucks. And you know it sucks because that's what you've been doing. See, what you've been doing is trying to blot out the consciousness of your intolerable situation the best you can, and that shit ain't even working no more. Now, how many of y'all, you get to a point, you want some help. You really want some help. But your pride, your ego won't let you say that. How many of y'all people go, man, how you doing? You go, fine. I'm great. Shit, I'm fine. Deep down, your ass is dying. But you don't want nobody to know that, because your ego and your pride won't allow you to say, man, I'm not doing too good right now. I really, really need some help. But see, once a person says they want some help, okay, things really start to change then. All right, back in the book. It says frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. It says the message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. In nearly all cases, their ideas must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. Now, frothy emotional appeal. How many of y'all in here, you yourself have frothily emotionally appealed to your own self? How many of y'all have cried at night going, I can't go on like this, yet you still do it? How many of y'all, your wives, your children, your mother, your father, your grandma, a judge, has frothily emotionally appealed to you? And they go, man, why? Why do you keep doing this? And you go, I promise you I won't do it anymore. And you mean that shit. Then an hour later, a day later, the obsession gets a hold to you. It overrules that they just emotionally appealed to you. You put the first one back in like they don't exist, and you off to the races again. I can remember my mother used to ask me, why do you keep doing the things that you do? And this is what I told her before I knew anything about any of this. I said, Mama, I don't know why. I don't know why. I just do. See, and that was the truth. How many of us have no idea why we keep putting the first one in? Then a man on the moon does. But we don't want to tell anybody we don't know, because we actually think we know everything. Now, when I come into a treatment center that was 12-step big book based, I'm in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they start explaining this to me. I went, son of a bitch. Now I know why I always kept putting the first one in, and now I know why I couldn't just do one or two. See, that's what they just told us in the big book. The message that's got to hold people like me, it's got to have some depth and some weight. Because look, before, This was explained to me in AA and in a 12-step based treatment center. People would always tell me what was going to happen to me. I had judges tell me, I had an ex-wife tell me, I had ex-employers tell me. They all could tell me what was going to happen to me. And when they telling me that, I'm thinking to myself, shit, I already know that. I know what's going to happen to me. Until I got into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, into a big book 12-step based recovery center, nobody could tell me why. Now, once somebody told me why, the next thought in my mind is they got to give me a solution. There's no way they're going to tell me why and then leave me hanging. Now, the solution to this problem that you've been dealing with, and you've been dealing with it for quite some time, the solution to that problem is in step 2. And the solution, it's only as good as my understanding of the problem. If I don't understand this problem, this is what I'll do. I'll go to a bunch of damn meetings. I'll never do the steps. I'll never tap into some power. And after a couple of months coming out of treatment, the obsession has been lying dormant. It's going to kick in. I'm going to put the first one in. I'm going to be off to the races. And I'm going to come up there saying, you know, that AA shit and them steps don't work. But if I really understand the problem, I really understand this. I understand about the obsession, how it's kicking my ass. I understand about the allergy. If I put one in, it's a wrap. If I understand that, I'm going to attack this solution like my life depends on it, which it actually does. Now, the solution is also twofold. Part of the solution centers in the fellowship, and in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm going to go to the meetings, and in these meetings, I'm going to get a lot of support. Now, if you're alcoholic like me and you have this little problem over here, just going to the meetings is not going to be enough. There's more to it than that. See, the real power, what we're really trying to get you to do is to come over here and pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools that we're laying at your feet and follow the precise, clear-cut directions for those steps, which are in the book. So what can happen to you is what's happened to me and over 3 million of us. We've changed. See, the fellowship supports, the steps change. Now, the program of AA, the fellowship in AA. When I say this, I have a lot of people look at me like I got about 4 heads and about 22 eyes. There are 2 AAs. And I did say 2. There's the fellowship in AA, that's the meetings. And then there's the program of AA, which is the steps, which is in the book. Now, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. The program of Alcoholics Anonymous is in the first 103 pages of this big book. That's the program of AA. You see all this stuff back here? These stories, and they have a couple of chapters to the wives, to their family, to the employers. All that's good stuff. It's actually good crap. But you know what it is? It's crap. It's good crap, but it's crap. That's the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, the first 103 pages of the book. That's the precise, clear-cut directions to take the steps. Now, the problem with an alcoholic, untreated, selfish, and self-centered to the core is they don't want to follow precise, clear-cut directions because they know everything. Now, how many of y'all would rather do what the first 103 pages of this book say to do and change your life, or keep doing what you say your program and keep getting your results. Now, you cannot work two programs at the same time. You're either going to do yours or this one. Now, let's talk about yours. Where has yours gotten you? Yours has gotten you a seat in a 12-step big book treatment center, listening to my ass. Now, I ask people this all the time. How many of y'all stood up in kindergarten class when you were in kindergarten physically? How many of y'all stood up in front of the teacher and said, hey, teach, when I grow up, I want to be a patient at Woodlake? Now, if you said that when you were in kindergarten, I would tell you, man, your program's working great. Don't change a thing. See, but you didn't say that. Now, I want you to take a look at where you sit. You're a patient at Woodlake. So your program's not working. Now, if you're alcoholic like me, it only leaves one other program, this one. Look, people like me, we have two programs to choose from, mine and this one. And you're free to choose. But if you choose yours, you have to be willing to accept all the consequences and results that come with it. And if you choose this one, you have to be ready for the results that you're going to get to blow your doors off. Now, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and the fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous, I can't stress enough the difference between the two. Now, this is one of the biggest mistakes I see newcomers make today. They come into, or they come out of a good 12-step big book-based facility. And they hit the ground running, and they dive into the fellowship. They go to a bunch of meetings. And in the first couple of months, it's exciting. They're meeting some new people. The camaraderie is great. The support's great. And going out to eat after the meetings is great. And they sort of leave the spiritual tools that we laid at their feet in the toolbox. And things go pretty good for a month or two, riding the coattail of the fellowship. But when life starts hitting you between the eyes again, which it will do, you start to get irritable. You start to get restless. You start to get discontented. And you really don't have anything to fall back on except the fellowship. And what happens? This thing that's been just lying dormant, waiting on you, finally says, I got your ass again. It kicks back in, and it gives you permission to put the first one in. And you tell yourself, hey, it's going to be different this time. I'm just going to do a couple, which you've never been able to do. So you put the first one back in, you off to the races, and when you come off for air, you're demoralized again. You're full of resentments. You're full of remorse. If you're not careful, it'll be on, and it'll be on bad. Now, we give you the problem in step one. We give you the solution in step two. Now, in step three, they're going to tell you, hey, it's time to make a decision. There's no middle of the road solutions anymore. You're either going to be all in or you're going to be all out. Now, in this decision you make, you're going to decide to remain powerless or to seek this power that we're trying to talk to you about. Now, if you look at it with facts, okay, not off emotions, but facts. What are the facts? What are the results that step one is giving you? Are you losing shit? Are you losing family? Are you losing jobs? Are you losing freedom? Are you losing self-esteem, self-respect? You don't do anything but lose shit. And that's fact. That's not fiction. Now, let's look at some evidence or results from this. Okay? Now, you may not be getting them yet because you haven't taken any steps yet. But you got to start looking at some people, okay, who used to be like you. See, they used to be like you. And what they did was they got involved in the fellowship, started taking the steps, and started to change, and they not like you anymore. They know how you feel. They know what's going through your mind because they've been there before, but they've recovered. See, in the person who's recovered, they armed, and they armed with some information for you, and it's there for the taking. Now, how many of y'all, you got 1 foot in and 1 foot out? You want to do some more of this, but you don't want the results that come with it. And all you really want to do is just enough to get by over here, like go to meetings, which ain't enough. Now, you either got to go. You got to go all in here or all in here. Now, let's say you don't want any more of this action anymore. Ever. Never, ever, ever. How would you carry out step 3, your step 3 decision, and get out of the problem and come over here and start living in the solution? How do you do that? See, we got some action steps. And they're outlined in precise, clear-cut directions on the big book. And they're called steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. These are the steps we take, which get me out of the problem into the solution. Now, this is the meat of the program, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And most of y'all are not going to do this because it's going to make you do something that you really don't want to do. So what you're going to do is come back over here and start using again and do some things you don't want to do. Now, let's say you stay stuck in the problem. Are you going to do some things you don't want to do? You better believe it. You're going to lie, cheat, steal, rob, pillage, let people down, deceive people. You're going to do a lot of things you don't want to do. Now, let's say you come over here and join us in the solution. Are you going to have to take some steps, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9? Are you going to have to do some things that you don't want to do? You are. So guess what? Either way, whether you stay in the problem or get into the solution, guess what the hell you fixing to do? You fixing to do some shit you don't want to do. Now, what 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 do? These action steps tap me into power. And the way I stay tapped into the power is by taking steps 10, 11, and 12 daily. Now, today, for the last 19 years or so, since I suffer from a spiritual illness, my medicine has to be spiritual. See, and I take my medicine every day. And my medicine today, my spiritual medicine today, is steps 10, 11, and 12. And every day that I take those, and I take them every day, all through the day, what that gives me is a daily reprieve from that action. And as long as I'm doing this, it taps me into that power every day, and that power gives me the daily reprieve. Now, I don't know about you, but 1 or 2 or 3 daily reprieves ain't enough for me. I want more, like 19 years and some months of daily reprieves. Now, what taps me into the power is not going to meetings. It's not talking with another alcoholic. It's actually taking these action steps, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then daily 10, 11, and 12. That's what taps me into the power. And if I'm doing that, what I have a lot to offer is to come back into these meetings and support a newcomer like yourself who's coming in here and looks at people like me, the Corys, the Jeffs, the Joshes of the world, the ones that y'all see a lot of us. See, we used to be just like you. But we're not like you anymore. What you can do is start looking at some people who used to be like you and start looking at them. See what they do in their life. See what kind of lives they're leading. It's nothing like what you live. Now, I guarantee you some of the people that I've named, okay, when we first came into this program, we were some self-deluded, selfish, self-centered, inconsiderate, dishonest people. We couldn't differentiate the true from the false. I can remember one of the first days sitting in that 12-step base treatment center. I was asked some real tough, hard questions, and I didn't like them. And one of those questions was this, and I want some of you that are sitting in treatment to ask yourself this question. And the first question I was asked was, did I love my family? And of course, what I said was, well, yes, I love my family. And the response I got sort of hit me between the eyes. And this is the response I got. Bullshit. You say out your mouth you love your family, but your actions prove you don't care about anybody but your damn self. Now, I want you to ask yourself, your mouth and your actions, do they match? Do you say one thing out of your mouth and then turn around and do the complete opposite? Because I know that's what I used to do. And when somebody would try to call me on my bullshit, I'd do one of two things. I'd get mad as hell. I'd stick my bottom lip out like everybody in Baton Rouge could ride home on it. Or I would just laugh it off. But the truth, and that's what we're trying to operate on now, not delusions, but truth. The truth was, what was coming out of my mouth was a bunch of lies and a bunch of bullshit. So I would take actions based on a bunch of lies and a bunch of bullshit, and the results were disastrous. And when I was getting these disastrous results, the loss of a lot of things, the only way to deal with it, I had to, that's how I dealt with it. Now, one of the second questions that was asked of me, they said, do you love you? Are you a true believer in God? And I said, well, of course I am. And the response I got hit me between the eyes even harder, which was bullshit. That's what your mouth says, but your actions prove the complete opposite. Now, I want you to turn your big book to page 62. On page 62, the first paragraph down, it says, Oxy and Roxycontin, that we think is the root of our trouble. That's not what it says if you're actually paying attention. It says selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our trouble. Now, that we think, that we is the ones of us who used to be like you. We took the steps and changed, and we ain't like you no more. See, this is what we know. It really wasn't the drugs and the alcohol that was the root of our trouble. The drugs and alcohol were a problem. The root of my trouble was I was a selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, inconsiderate, dishonest ass person. Now, By being that way, this is what I would do. I was driven by 100 forms of fear. See, I had a lot of fear. Fear I wasn't going to get what I wanted. Fear I was going to lose something that I already had, like my freedom. But the biggest fear I had was people were going to figure me out for the fake ass person that I really was. So based on this fear, what I would do is a bunch of stuff I knew wasn't right. But this is what I would do. I would self-delude myself. They call it self-delusion. I would do shit I knew was wrong, but I would make myself believe the shit I just did was okay. And the reason I did that is because the next one, I was trying to satisfy nobody but Kevin. I was a self-seeking person. I didn't care about you. I didn't want to know really anything about you. The only one I was worried about, my actions proved it, was me. Now, driven by fear, self-delusion, and self-seeking, I would screw a bunch of shit up. And the last one would kick in. It's called self-pity. My bottom lip would poke out and everybody could ride home on it. Now, how many of y'all are driven by fear, by self-delusion, by self-seeking, and by self-pity? And by getting the results from that, how many of y'all have to put something in you just to be able to live with yourself? Says we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Now, I want you to ask yourself this question. Have you been stepping on people's toes? And don't say your own. You don't count. Now, how many of y'all in here, the people that you say you love the most are the ones whose toes that you're stepping on the most? Now tell me that's not some deluded thinking. Now, when you step on people's toes, the book says they retaliate. How many times have you stepped on people's toes, they retaliated against you, and this is what you said? I don't know why they doing that to me. I didn't do nothing. See, when I would step on people's toes and they would retaliate on me, all I could see is what they were doing to retaliate. I couldn't see what I did to set the ball rolling. When somebody has this little personality change, the spiritual awakening, when they step on somebody's toes and people retaliate on them, against them, they go, oh, now I know why they did that, because I set the ball rolling. It's all me. It's really not them. How many of us, we never do that? It's always somebody else's fault. They wouldn't have did this, I wouldn't have did that. If they wouldn't have said this, I wouldn't have said that. If they didn't make me feel like this, I wouldn't have done that. You never take responsibility for your own actions. All right, back in the book. It says sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation. But we invariably find that at some time in the past, we have made decisions based on self, which later placed me in positions to be hurt. Now, it says sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation. Now, I want you to really listen to this. It's sort of cute, but it's actually sort of truthful. How many of y'all in here, you've been with us for a little while and you heard that pop? The pop I'm talking about, it goes. That pop I'm talking about is when your head exits your butthole and you're able to start seeing the sunlight of the spirit instead of the darkness of your behind. When a person ever hears that pop, what starts to really come into focus is, man, I can't believe I treated people like that. And most of the people that you treated like that still want to try to help Still, after everything you've done to them. Now, the last part that we read, it says sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation, but we invariably find that I make decisions based on self that later place me in positions to be hurt. Now, I want you to think of one person that loves and cares about you the most. One person. Now, that person that you're thinking about, that loves you the most, have they ever came up to you unprovoked for no reason and hurt you? And if they love you the most, the answer to that question should be no. And the reason they've never come up to you unprovoked and hurt you is because they do love you. Now, who's the one person that you say you love the most? A lot of people say my mom. A lot of people say my kids. Now, have you ever went up to them unprovoked for no reason and hurt them? And the answer, the truth to that question is absolutely yes. And it's because you don't love them. See, and most people go, well, I do love my family. Most alcoholics left untreated don't even know what the word love actually means. Love actually means you have a genuine concern for another human being. Now, how can I possibly have concern for another human being when I don't even have genuine concern for my own damn self? There's a couple of things when we start moving forward with these steps, if you're actually listening and you're actually all in to win, that you're going to start to figure out. And these are the things that you're going to start to figure out. That drugs and alcohol are not and never have been the root of your trouble. They're a problem, don't get me wrong, but they're not the root of your troubles and they never have been. It's you. You're a selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, inconsiderate, dishonest person. And if that doesn't change, when you get out of treatment, you're going to continue to treat people the same way, sober. You're going to start to get some of those bad results again, sober. And after a couple of rapid times in succession of getting those bad results sober, you're going to start to get irritable, restless, discontent. And this obsession is going to tell you, man, I need some relief, which you probably do because you've done nothing. And you're going to reach over and put that first one in and get you some relief, and it's going to set off this monster in your life again. And you're going to come up for air going, how to ever get started again? Now, we're going to sort of close up in the next 5-10 minutes with just a couple of things. We're going to recap a couple of things here and there. Steps 1, 2, and 3 are like this. Get ready, get set, go. See, nothing happens in step 1. Nothing happens in step 2. And even though a lot of people expect a lot, nothing happens in step 3. See, step 1, we give you facts. We give you information. In step 2, we give you some more facts, some more information. And in step 3, we just tell you, hey, decide which one you want more, the problem or the solution. Nothing happens until you start taking the action steps, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, step 3, it's just a decision. Nothing happens. I want anybody who's listening, I want you to close your eyes just for a minute. Just close your eyes. And I want you to decide to go to California. Now, open your eyes. Where are you? See, a decision to go to California changed absolutely nothing. To carry out that decision to go to California, I would actually have to take some action. And that action would be go to the bus station, go to the airline, buy a ticket to California, get on the damn transportation, and go. That would be how I carried out my decision with action. Decisions change absolutely, positively nothing. How many of y'all have ever decided to get your shit together? And after you made that decision to get your shit together, you did absolutely nothing. So decisions change nothing. What changes things are actions. Now, the actions that I'm going to take to change my life, I got to make sure I take the right actions because my life depends on it. Now, steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. In this book right here, in the first 103 pages, they have some precise, clear-cut directions on how to take steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. You can't go wrong if you follow the book. And then, the way I start living again, 10, 11, and 12. And again, in the first 103 pages of the big book, they got precise, clear-cut directions on how to do 10, 11, and 12. Now, to sum it up, and we'll go ahead and close this session. For me, steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 got me out of hell. Steps 10, 11, and 12 have rocketed me towards heaven. Now, if you want to join us, all you've got to do is pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools that were laid at your feet, and you can be part of we instead of part of me. I appreciate y'all joining us in this session.